Last weekend, I attended a conference that hosted over 200 young leaders from around North America and the Caribbean. As I had conversation after conversation with young leaders who wore titles such as entrepreneur, CEO, and director, I wondered, how did these individuals get to where they are today? What tools did they need in order to be successful? And more importantly, what are they doing to empower and develop the next generation of leaders? Today, we'll hear from a next gen leader who has faced adversity head on, dedicated his life's work to empower youth, and is starting his next chapter at one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Welcome to The Behaviors with Work Wisdom, where we help you adopt high performance mindsets, behaviors, communication, and culture. I'm your host, Jamie Arroyo. Our intention for the Behaviors podcast is to share accessible, concrete practices that you can weave into your whole life to begin a shift toward joy and meaningful achievement. We're grateful to have Leo Silva, Associate Director of Atalo, a college access organization whose mission is to support success-oriented youth from primarily underrepresented communities in their pursuit of academic achievement, empowerment, and social engagement. What's up, Leo? Thank you for joining us today.
What's up, Jamie? How's it going, boss?
Living the dream, man. Living the dream.
Oh,
Well,
that was quite the intro, and I feel very flattered. I have imposter syndrome right now because one, that was just very welcoming. But I think personally, you have changed my life multiple times. I don't like to admit this, but like most Gen Ys, I tend to go to social media probably a little bit too much, especially when I'm bored. Um, but luckily, I have some like dope friends like you who make it their life's goal to be inspiring. So whenever I'm really bored, I just kind of look at your story. So thank you guys for having me, but I definitely feel some kind of imposter syndrome right now.
well, lucky for you, we actually have an episode on that. So anyone that's interested in learning more about imposter syndrome can look back at the feed and hear one of the Work Wisdom episodes on that. But thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'm definitely excited to learn or hear your story again, and for you to share it with our audience. You've had a unique journey, just kind of growing up in the Dominican Republic, and arriving to where you're at today. Can you share with the audience a little bit about that journey and some of the things that you learned from it?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I think the story I like to share was, now I was 7 years old and I was standing in my room on a cold, wet, and muddy floor. Beds were floating down the streets. My neighbor's roof was ripping apart. It was 1998 and Hurricane George was destroying the Dominican Republic. And I always like to start my story by having people visualize one of my first memories and what I saw. Because what happened afterwards was really special. And what happened was that people came out and helped each other rebuild. And I think that was the first time I felt a real sense of community. And now, wherever I go, whether I was Lancaster a few years later, whether it was Millersville after going to high school, I grew up in the city, and then working at Atalo and now at Harvard. Those are some of the things that I look for. I really look for environments that are welcoming and are helping each other not only rebuild the community but rebuild each other. So that was kind of my short little background. My village was really small. I remember growing up without shoes in the Dominican Republic, and I think it humbles me when I look back on my past, and it keeps me grounded, and it helps me just be gracious what I currently have. Something that I keep hearing all the time is that you should count your blessings. So for me, the easiest way to count my blessings is just to sit down and reflect. So thank you so much for asking me, kind of to share that, kind of just put me in the mood of just being gracious for what I have. So.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. So you grew up in the Dominican Republic. You come to the United States with your family to start a new life. And fast forward, you end up at Atalo. Can you tell me a little bit about your role at Atalo and what the mission was there and what you were trying to do specifically?
Yeah. So, man, I'll probably have to just to rewind just a little bit.
Sure.
I met, I, you know, I grew up in the city. I had a daughter in 11th grade, which was a big turning point for me. Um, just because I was kind of getting myself into some trouble, but the moment I saw my daughter and I saw somebody looking back at me, my life changed forever. Um, I no longer was just worried about myself. I had to be accountable for my actions because other people were looking at me to be inspiring, to be their motivation. Um, so I got really serious after that, and luckily, yes, I was young, but my family was very supportive. So I went to Millersville, and Millersville was tough. I was working 35 hours a week. I was working at R.R. Donnelley and at Willow Valley. I was doing school full time, and I kind of made it my mission at the time to really finish in 4 years. And just like at every other pivotal moment in my life, there was always been someone or a group of people who have kind of helped me when times got rough. So junior year of college, I was Dr. Madden, my advisor, that I went to her and I told her, listen, I don't think I can do it anymore. I was just overwhelmed. And then kind of that led to me really pushing through that last year. And during that last year, I actually met Jordan Steffi, who was the executive director at Atalo. And that's kind of where the Atalo journey started. He doesn't like me sharing this, but we actually met at the gym. So
do you want to share? Do you want to share specifically where?
No, not really. But we were in the sauna. So hopefully he gets to listen to this and be embarrassed by it. But yeah, we were in the sauna and we just kind of clicked. And I saw somebody like me who was a leader and somebody who I wanted to emulate and be like. So I kind of jumped on board. And I remember the first event that I was invited to. It was kind of a summer event. I believe you might have been there. It was kind of the kickoff of Atalo with James Franklin. It was called Party in the Park. Mm-hmm. He said, yeah, you should come out to this. And I said, yes. And then a week later, he said, hey, we're having a graduation party for 4 students. And I'm like, sure, why not? I'll go to it. And then a week after that, he goes, hey, do you want to go on college tours? We're going to expose our students to kind of what's out there. Something that we really believe is that you can't be what you can't see. And I was like, yes, of course. Why not? And then kind of that led to something else and something else. And all of a sudden I found myself on board and all in. But what I really liked about Atalo and what I was really fortunate to have experiences is that it was really small. It was really, really high touch. I talked about earlier, holding each other accountable. And that's what we did. We held not only the students accountable to their dreams, but we held each other accountable to our dreams. And yeah, I had the blessing to kind of see it grow throughout the last 5 years. So we went from those 4 students who graduated, who I didn't know at the time when I went to that graduation party, to now we're serving over 300 students every single year. But one of those students really stuck out to me, and her name was Jade Grove, because I didn't know her at all, but I saw her at this graduation party, and 5 years later, as I transitioned out, she actually came on board, and that was really, really cool to just see full circle. Somebody who I first saw when I started graduating from the program, going off to college, and then coming back to serve her community. So if anything, that's exactly what I want to do. I feel an obligation to kind of come back to Lancaster and serve.
That's awesome. So one of the things I admire you about, Leo, is that you're not only a strong leader, but you're also a strong supporter of others. I've seen you go above and beyond to help others in times of need, and when times get tough, you show up. So tell me about the importance of supporting others as a leader and how that creates a lot of value to others.
Yeah. I think every day I had the opportunity to be a motivation to another student, to a different person. And I think my approach has been to be the example. So a lot of times the common thing that we hear people say is work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, and you'll be all right. Practice. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And the truth is, if somebody's telling you just to work hard, not giving you a strategy, and not telling you what to work in, there's something wrong there. So I made it my goal to, one, if I was going to suggest someone to read more, or I was going to suggest someone to practice whatever the case, whatever it was that they needed to practice, whether it was an instrument, whether it was getting better at the SAT, whether it was studying for an English test, I was going to be doing the same. I was going to be learning. So my approach to mentoring is be coachable myself. One, listen like crazy. God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so I could listen twice as much as I talk. So that's kind of what I've done. I love podcasts. So I'm really big into podcasting. And I'm really big into listening to other strategies for mentoring as well, and really big into listening to how other people master their craft, so that I can take those approaches and can teach other people how to approach whatever it is that they need to master. So one of the audios that I go back to all the time is it's by Tim Ferriss, and the name is kind of like fleeing my mind right now. It's called Learning How to Learn. And Tim Ferriss goes through how he learned multiple languages. He knows more than eight languages, and he kind of breaks it down. But the acronym he uses and the acronym I used in order to teach people how to do the SAT was the same. And he went through this acronym called DISS, DSSS, which stands for deconstruction. Know all of the blocks, know all of the things that you need to know about a certain subject, put it on the table. And then once you have all the Lego blocks, all the units, select the 20% that make up 80% of that specific thing. So for the SAT, really, it was just about a few subjects. For running, it's really about maybe just your breathing and how you're putting your feet down. So select. And then the second S is sequence. Put it in a way that is going to be, one, easy to learn, and it's going to build on itself. Sequence matters. And then the last thing was stakes. Put some stakes in. If you fail, what would happen? And it kind of goes hand in hand with what's your why. You need to have a strong why in order for you to keep pushing once things get tough. So that's kind of my approach to mentoring, and the opportunity that I've had to be able to amplify. To be able to kind of apply what I've learned to mentoring the youth that I've had the opportunity to be with.
That's great. So at Atalo, one of your core pillars there is resilience. Next gen leaders get a lot of slack for not being resilient enough, but I disagree. I think a lot of us came up in ways that forced us to develop resilience, and a lot of us carry that into our work. I like to think that it was resilience and grit that actually got me to where I'm at this point. And I think I see a lot of those similar characteristics in you. Can you share with us some ways that resilience has played a role in your leadership?
Yeah, I think in 2 ways. One, I think naturally, first of all, resilience to me is kind of Atalo's definition. I've kind of adopted it for myself as well. And we say it means just bouncing back from setbacks. And in life, I think you're going to have multiple types of setbacks. So the 2 ways that resilience kind of played a part is I've been able to, because of the adversity that I've faced, I've been able to speak genuinely and authentically about my experiences, which really inspires other people. And then secondly, I think because I've grown to understand the importance of resilience, I've now put myself in situations that make it really challenging, so that when challenges just happen, I have something to go back to. For example, I think transitions are a challenge, and I knew that transitioning from working for the past 5 years at Atalo to Harvard was going to be a big challenge, and something that we do once in a while is 5 before 5, which is just 5 miles before 5 a.m. And before I transitioned, and I think you ran one of these with us, which was amazing. But before I transitioned, I did 5 in a row. I woke up every day at 4 a.m. the 5 days leading to my transition, and I did 5 miles. And what that did was that it prepared me. It prepared me for anything that could happen. And the reason why I did that is because I knew the transition was going to be challenging, but if I could compare it to something that I've already done and I've already been successful at, I knew it would make it easier. So those are kind of the two ways, being resiliency and adversity has really played a part in my approach, and one, how I mentor other people, and just kind of how I go about life.
Love it, man. Yeah, we actually ran a 5 before 5 probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And for the audience, the 5 before 5, we probably start a little bit after 4 a.m. With the intention of finishing right before 5 a.m. And we did it in a group of others. And, it's one of those things that helps not only develop resilience, but it's a reminder of being a high performer. So from a high performance standpoint, a lot of young leaders want to be high performers. Outside of running before 5 a.m. or running 5 miles before 5 a.m., what are some other tools that you pull out to make sure that you're constantly challenging yourself to be a high performer, and that you would recommend to others to use to increase their performance?
Kind of on the other side of that, I would suggest practicing kindness and empathy. I think the beautiful things about the people that I've been able to associate with, and the beautiful thing about Tahoe is that we can have real conversations all the time, and by real I mean conversations about race, empathy, and leadership. It's an acronym, real. So I think not shying away from those conversations, I think, is very important. Um, and and I actually think that you know when it comes to empathy and leadership, Work Wisdom does a really good job at that. So I had the opportunity to sit in um, Kendra Crosby's. She did a strategic planning for Columbia High School, and a few of us at Atalo got to sit in, and we were just in awe. Here we were. We consider ourselves to know a little bit about about leadership and empathy just because of the work we do. Um, but it was really cool just to see her kind of navigate the room. One, not shy away from those tougher conversations that that district specifically needed to have. And I actually think they're doing a great job. But I think, yeah, I think kindness and empathy go a very long way. And there's certain ways to practice it, and not shy away from it. And I think even setting out time to actually just have conversations like those with friends, it's important. So something that we have done is called Give Me Five. And Give Me Five is we put out 5 words that have to do with things that are just happening, whether it is intersectionality, whether it is color blindness, whether it is race. Sometimes words that trigger emotion, and we would define them in our own words and then talk about our experiences as it pertains to those words. So just doing little things like that, that one, just have us appreciate other people, empathize with other people, and just grow a little bit, just gain some cultural competency. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think when, kindness, empathy, and I'll actually add a third one that kind of goes with your authentic leadership and listening more is curiosity. So I'm actually reading The Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz now, and he quotes former Secretary of State Colin Powell, who says that leadership is the ability to get someone to follow you, even if only out of curiosity. And when I think of folks our age that are starting to develop as leaders and even starting to be in positions of leadership, it takes even more curiosity to make sure that you're listening not only to folks that are coming that are in front of you, but also that are coming behind you. So I think kindness and empathy kind of support that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool. So, as a next gen leader, what do you think that some organizations should start doing to develop their own next gen leaders? What are some things that organizations should be thinking about to make sure that internally they're creating a support system and that environment that you mentioned to make sure that their leaders are being supported and can grow?
Yeah, I think not shying away from hiring them. I think that's number one. I think most of the time, and what we keep hearing is that it's hard. It's hard to hire someone who's young, because maybe they don't have the experience. You don't know what it's going to be like. So and sometimes it's difficult to put them in a position of leadership, not knowing exactly how they're going to react or how they're going to perform. Um, and I think trusting um, that they will actually do better and take things more seriously than sometimes, you know, they put the facade of, I think is very important. Just because today's generation just moves so fast, and we we don't believe them to have very much a lot of focus. I think trusting that they actually do and they're actually capable, and putting them in positions that they're able to fail. I think that's kind of one way to do so.
And on the flip side of that, you work with a lot of young leaders that probably talk to you a lot about what their dreams are from a career standpoint, what they want to see their life look like in a few years. What are we looking for from our employers to develop as leaders and become better at what we do?
I think I think we're looking for what we are looking for is for potential. What I like to do is judge somebody's based on their potential, not necessarily based on where they're at. Um, and I think it's because of my background. I actually don't think I was very sharp uh, growing up, but someone always gave me the opportunity to prove myself. And although I wasn't sharp, I believed myself to be hardworking. And because of that, and because I had the opportunity to fail, I was able to grow in certain leadership characteristics. Um, so I think one thing we should really, really focus on is professional development. Um, I think this generation wants it, they seek it, but they just don't know where it's at. And I think it's our duty to one, be aware of kind of what's happening around Lancaster, so that when opportunities arise, we can plug them in. Um, so I think that's one way, and that's kind of one thing that I've looked at. I look for potential, and then I look for professional development opportunities that they can take advantage of. And these professional development opportunities don't even have to be structured. They don't have to be a part of another organization all the time, although those are great, and there's a lot of good ones in Lancaster. They can be little things that you do with them, whether it is an activity, whether it is running together, whether it is just spending time conversing. Professional development can look very different. I think we have kind of this image or this box that we put professional development in, which is, oh my gosh, you have to attend a class, and class has to meet every other Friday, and you have to get this, and this from it. And I think it look very different than that.
Definitely. Leo, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate having you here and sharing your story and your thoughts on next generation of leaders. But before we wrap up, can you tell us one piece of advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self?
Mm. I would start reading and listening. Now, I think there's, during the last 5 days here at Harvard, I think I've read two books, and I've listened to one. So that just and the amount of information I've been consuming, I think, really helps me, one, inspire other people, talk to other people. Um, Whatever you put in is what you're going to come out. It's whatever you're going to kind of put out there. Um, so that's the thing that I would tell my 18-year-old self, is just to start listening, to start reading and soaking up more information. I think I was worried about other things at that time.
Thanks, Leo. There you have it. Thank you, listeners, for downloading The Behaviorist, and we'll hope you'll subscribe. Please reach out to us through our website, workwisdomllc.com, where you can enjoy Work Wisdom press and productions, ask questions, and suggestions of topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes. And as our custom, today we'll leave you with some 1-minute wisdom from Anthony DeMello on authenticity. The master was never impressed by diplomas or degrees. He scrutinized the person, not the certificate. He was once heard to say, when you have ears to hear a bird in song, you don't need to look at its credentials.